Will Vic Fangio be back in Miami next year? It's something we talked about after the presser with McDaniel. His answer was very interesting. We'll talk about with Omar Kelly today as well. How long do Tua and McDaniel have before the owner, Stephen Ross, gets a little fed up with not winning? We'll talk about that, plus so many other things. Smash that like button. Subscribe if you are new. Let's get into it.
Touchdown! You have got to be kidding me.
Jaylen Waddle has a Dolphin touchdown.
And he will score! He's upfield on the near side, man open, touchdown! The run from Tua Tagovailoa. Touchdown!
He's going deep. He's going over a touchdown again. Touchdown!
Beautiful day to be a Dolphin fan. Let's go! What is good, Fin Nation? What's good? It's your boy Reason, and we're back here for another one as I'm joined by the great Omar Kelly. We turned from cover 4 to cover 6, quarters half. Hope everyone is doing well.
I got that inside joke, man.
Welcome back to the show, Omar. It's a pleasure to have you back, and we got a lot to talk about today, sir.
Yeah, man. End of the season. Season ended like a big fat turd that needs to be flushed, and now we're in the process of flushing it, getting the plunger out.
All right, so let's talk about this because this is one thing I've been waiting to talk about, just to hear your thoughts on this. When Chris Greer and McDaniel had that exit presser, however you want to word it. Something that stuck out to me was the whole Vic Fangio line of questioning, and it wasn't it was the answer, but it kind of felt like a deflection by McDaniel when he kind of talked about, like, we're still in mourning, all this kind of jazz, blah, 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 blah. Now,
hold on. Wait a minute. Put a pin in that.
Okay.
Understand that they had just lost a very tough loss, had actually gotten back 7 a.m. in the morning. Rested for a full day for everybody. Obviously, the coaches, still had some stuff to do. But then the next day, McDaniel has a team meeting, and then they end with the exit interviews with players, where he's got like 15 minutes with every player, and that's where he was. And then he heads to a press conference with us, and so they haven't had any time to do any sit downs with any of the coaches or reassess and understand he's a very linear thinker. So I really think when he did answer that, he hadn't thought about anything and hadn't had any conversations with any of the coaches. And truthfully speaking, to address the Vic Fangio situation, everybody in the organization, everybody in that building knows Vic Fangio is the boss of the defense. He calls his own shots. Vic is here because Miami's the highest bidder, but there were other teams that were interested in his services. And the minute Vic wants to leave, Vic is going to leave, and nobody's going to stop him. And you got to make sure you keep him happy. And I think that's what Mike McDaniel is trying to do, and that's why he leaves him and lets him do his thing and stays out of the way. Now, there are a lot of people who say that Mike can't survive in a relationship, in a situation like that. So you're telling me he can't survive in a situation where he doesn't have to think about the defense and he can just focus on offense, and this doesn't make Mike McDaniel happy? I'm pretty sure it does make him happy. Now, is he pleased when he has to say, hey, why isn't Vic Fangio shadowing a receiver with Jaylen Ramsey? And your response is, well, I don't know, because Vic said so. Mike's ego, I've covered a lot of coaches, and Mike doesn't have ego. that he doesn't have a massive ego like that. So
Yeah.
Adam Gase, it would have been a totally different situation. So I think the relationship is going to work. But now, if Seattle comes calling for Vic or Denver comes calling for Vic, and now they're putting up $5 million or $5.5 or $6 million on the table, who knows? Who knows what happens?
Are you surprised we're even having this conversation though, based on how good the defense was and how good the performance was and how
He's not going to be fired. It's just
no. It's about him. If he's gonna if he wants to stay. It's not about him being fired. If it's gonna walk, like he's such a personality that he could even in a good situation he could leave at any moment, right?
Yeah.
Are you like are you a little shocked that it's only been 1 year? A lot of us, let's be honest. I mean, I'm not talking about you guys in the media, but a lot of people outside the media thought this. I don't want to use, long-term solution means 5-6 years. I don't want to go that far, but at least people thought this could be like a 3-year bridge to maybe a Ronaldo Hill. Maybe if it's Sean Desai, who might come here now after what happened with Patricia and stuff, if someone could take the reins. Are you surprised that it's even being discussed as, and I don't even want to say this, but it's being discussed as a potential, is he going to be back after 1 year? After, I think a lot of people in the fan base with how this ended, Omar, how the season ended, I don't think a lot of people in the fan base, and again, it's out of their control, 110%. I don't think a lot of people in this fan base would be happy if Fangio wasn't here next year, based on that was probably one of our brightest spots by the end of the season, right? The defense.
I think they'll be fine no matter what. Them understanding and being more comfortable in Fangio's defense at the end of the season is going to be beneficial for them. Now, does Fangio want to rebuild a unit where Christian Wilkins is a free agent and you're probably going to cut Jerome Baker and both your edge rushers are on IR and probably going to be there until maybe October, and Javon Holland's battling 2 knee injuries and you're probably going to have to replace Xavier Howard? No, probably not, but it depends on whether he's signed and sealed and how comfortable he is in South Florida. If does he really like it? Has he met a little lady? There's a lot of factors that go into this decision, but I don't think Mike McDaniel is going to hold him here as a prisoner if he doesn't want to be here. And that really is ultimately what it comes down to. And that's probably why Mike McDaniel has given him the freedom that he does have. And he's got carte blanche, all the freedom in the world.
Yeah, which we should. Speaking with the coaches, though, do you think that the offense sputtering in the second half the way it did? I know he's been requested to have an interview with the Seahawks and he's interviewed with the Panthers. Do you think this has affected Frank Smith's chances of getting a head coaching job?
I didn't think Frank Smith's chances of getting a head coaching job were very strong to begin with. I know everybody wants to see the young guru offense, the guy who coaches the number one offense, and that's really Mike McDaniel. Calls plays for the number one offense, become a head coach, and that's the fastest track to becoming a head coach. But to me, I look at Frank Smith as a guy that I'm not necessarily certain he's got the cachet enough to put together a good coaching staff. And to me, that's what really separates the good coaching candidates from everybody else. Can you put together a good coaching staff? And I'm not sure that Frank Smith can do that. I don't think he can walk in an interview at Carolina and Seattle and say, here's my staff, here's my assistants, here's my coordinators, let's go. And that takes some time. And I'm not necessarily certain that Frank Smith on his first go round can get it done. But then again, Mike McDaniel got it done. He came here with a full arsenal of a staff that basically just left San Francisco like, bye, see you later. Remember the Joe Philbin years when he was coming from Green Bay and the rule was that you couldn't take any Green Bay assistants?
Yep.
And Mike McDaniel just
didn't Belichick have that rule?
Yeah, Belichick had that rule too. I think Brian Flores only took the wide receiver coach that he made the offensive coordinator, and that lasted all of 1 year. But yeah, it's, you see that a lot. But the 49ers, they were just like, take who you want. we're all in use and we're all here, and it's clearly didn't impact them much.
No, and I mean they even did it with D'Amico Ryans, right? I mean, he brought over the passing game coordinator from San Fran. So, Danny Crossman, what are your thoughts on the special teams performance? They lit up some big plays at the end of the season. I don't know if you know who Rick Gosselin is, but he's been doing special teams numbers for like over 30 years. And yeah, he came out with his rankings, and we were ranked 31st on his special teams rankings. Danny Crossman's a guy personally, I'm surprised he's survived beyond Boyer and such. Do you think this is this offseason where McDaniel goes out and gets his guy? Because this is another carryover from the Flores era.
You know what? Who is this guy? And special teams coaches, they're a unique brand, they're a unique breed. There aren't every Darren Rizzi's sitting around just waiting out unemployed, waiting for work. So I think that might be the reason why Danny Crossman got retained for a year. I think it'll be interesting to see, 2 blunders at very critical, bad times. Is that going to cost you your job? And I don't know. I don't know the answer to that, to be honest with you. But we shall soon find out in the coming days.
I got to get at you for something, but I got to circle back here for a sec.
Okay, come on.
I'm sorry, man. Are you still are in the camp of against what I said, that a dynamic tight end after the catch wouldn't finish this off?
No, what I'm saying is that I don't think that they throw to the ball to anybody who doesn't run a 4.3. And prove me wrong.
Okay, no problem. I can prove you wrong right now. Tua had 560 attempts. Only 275 of those attempts went to Tyreek and Jaylen Waddle. The third most targets were to Durham Smythe.
That's correct. And you know why Durham Smythe played as much as he did? Because he's a phenomenal blocker and he cleans up everything like he's a janitor. And
that's what I'm saying. You got to find someone who can block and offer you something after the catch. That's what
they love Durham Smythe, and they absolutely love Julian Hill. They think that I have never heard them glow about a young rookie, and he played a ridiculous amount of snaps. And I'm telling you that they can both catch and they can both be more effective from a target standpoint. Problem is, this team doesn't want to throw to anybody who doesn't run a 4.3. They have no desire to. They and look at your red zone. You're telling me
that's where it needs.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, but you had Mike Gesicki. How well did that pay out for you? What?
Mike Gesicki, I will say this: when we would lose like Devontae or Preston, who would Tua go to? It would always be Mike Gesicki, right? It would always be, there was some kind of comfort with tight end, which he never really showed at Alabama, because in Alabama, like that, they didn't use a lot of tight ends.
I'm telling you,
right?
In practice, they don't even throw to the tight ends.
I'm saying a dynamic guy could change that, though. You get Brock Bowers on this team, he's changing that. We're not going to draft him because he'll be gone in the top 10. But you go get Brock Bowers, he's changing that. No, he's changing that dynamic.
They are. I hear where everybody's coming from. Hell, Chase Claypool could have been made a tight end. He when he first started practicing, he was doing H-back stuff.
Yeah.
Slot and H-back stuff.
And then he couldn't catch a ball in bracketed coverage in the end zone. Why bother throwing to the guy?
I don't know what it is. Schematically, and they've got an excellent tight end coach here. They've got one of the best in the league. They have no desire. I can tell you, I've spent 4 years watching Tua practice. He doesn't throw to a tight end. He doesn't. That's just not his thing. And yeah, I was surprised when Durham Smythe started to heat up at the end of the season and actually then worked his way into the third leading pass catcher on the team. But you know what that is? It's a reflection of everybody else sucked. I think
no one stepped up in that wide receiver throw.
I think you need a better slot receiver more than you need a better tight end.
Tight end.
That's my thought process. Braxton Berrios should have contributed more.
Yeah, I agree.
When did Braxton Berrios make a play all season? River Craycraft made more plays than Braxton Berrios, And that's not an endorsement on River Craycraft.
Yeah.
I just think this offense has no desire to utilize a tight end. And if they do want to utilize a tight end, he's going to still have to be a blocking first kind of player.
Yeah.
He can't be a Mike Gesicki. It's just not a major part of this offense. And I know Nick Hicks tweeted about it, and because Nick is tweeting about it, I got to give it a little bit more thought. And I'm not opposed to it.
Thanks, Omar. Thanks.
Nothing against you. I mean, this is we are talking about Tua's advocate here.
Yeah, I know.
But I mean, when do you see Tua throw to the tight end? When do you see them design plays for? I thought Alec Ingold was probably the most underutilized player on the entire team.
After you just paid him too.
I mean, they didn't pay him that much money.
No, but they gave him more chances last year catching footballs out of the backfield than they did this year. This year they just took it out of the playbook almost.
Yeah, absolutely. I thought you should have leaned on that a little bit more in the final stages of the season.
I agree.
And lean on your I formation a little bit more, but just wasn't the route that they wanted to go. And do I understand why? No, but hey, the one thing that I will say about this whole Mike McDaniel's, incompetent kind of narrative that's being put out there by people, and he should have his play calling privileges taken away from him. Did he or did he not just call the plays all season for the number 1 ranked offense in the NFL? Did that happen or did it not happen? Now, all of a sudden, because in a torrential, horrible weather game where they've only had one practice and all 4 of their top playmakers are on offense are injured, did they call a crap show of a game? Absolutely. Even he said it on Hard Knocks. Like, nothing is working. We look like crap. But so that's valid. The question is, how do you fix it? How do you move forward? You don't fix it by saying, hey, the guy who called the number 1 offense in the NFL, who everybody for 3 months of the season is saying so innovative, everybody needs to copy him, everybody needs to do what he's doing. Say, no, you can't call plays anymore. We're going to take your play calling ability away. Like, how is that the answer? That's just average, typical fans' knee-jerk reaction. You got embarrassed in your final 3 games. Baltimore, the team that I think is probably going to win it all, they mollywopped you, took you to the back, and just beat you to a pulp. I personally believe they would have beaten every single team in the NFL on that week. They had just smacked around the 49ers, who everybody came into that game thinking was the best team. So if you smack around the best team, that makes you the best team, correct?
Yeah.
Then you smack around the Dolphins, who everybody's loving, and that makes you a Super Bowl front runner. That makes you the Super Bowl front runner. Like, I got to look at what the odds are because I put my money on Baltimore winning the Super Bowl. Then the next week, your daddy comes to town. He takes out his belt, gives you a little whooping, embarrasses you in front of the class, and then you want to go and you want to cry to everybody about how bad the whooping was. Okay, well, the next week, the reigning Super Bowl champion, you're going to have to go play them with your guys. Yeah, you got all your weaponry back on the field, but let's not pretend you didn't watch Hard Knocks and see everybody limping around, see Mike McDaniel kick Tyreek out of the one practice that they had that week, and say to yourself, okay, everybody said, all right, all the guys are back now. We should look like ourselves. Man, please. That was the most Toradol assisted game I've ever seen in my life, because in my mind, there's no way Raheem Mostert should have played. There's no way Jaylen Waddle should have played. And Tyreek was playing at 70%, and he's just a freak of nature. And then Devon Achane, okay, turf toe finally got to him. You can't run on it for 3 weeks and not think turf toe is going to get worse before it gets better. They just gave you nothing, and you couldn't run on that team. They smacked you in the mouth with their press coverage in quarters.
You see how they're jamming?
Jamming.
They're covered 2 in quarters all night, basically, just jamming.
Yeah.
See, okay, here's my thing. Like, okay, listen. Barry Harwitz. I was way out ahead of the play calling stuff. You know, when I was at, this is when I broached the subject after the Raiders win. Okay. That's when I broached the subject, and my issue is more so situationally. And when, I mean, we saw it rear its ugly head on, the 3rd and 1, 4th and 1. We saw that multiple times this season. But I found once we got inside the 20 and especially inside the 10, when speed is no longer get it done and you got to manufacture space for guys, get him in his, that's where I feel he's probably at his weakest, is situationally there.
I mean, but they
feel
were one of the top red zone teams for majority of the season. I don't know where they finished.
And I hate to be that guy, but it should have been better.
I'm not arguing with you, but and that's my thing about. I'm going to look it up right now where they finished. That's the one thing I don't want to sit here and criticize Mike McDaniel. They were number 2 in red zone.
Neither do I. Listen, I wanted this guy.
They were number 2 in the red zone behind the 49ers. Like,
we
for the whole season.
Them. We should have ran through them.
Now they were 18th in goal to go. That's not good. But number 2 in red zone, and yeah, man. I'm not arguing against what you said because it was a problem. But how do I criticize a unit that's number 2?
I know. I like 110%.
How do I criticize an offense? Yeah, they played poorly at the end of the season. And I would argue, and fans look at this as an excuse, but I'm sorry. And you watch the film. Do teams play the Miami Dolphins the same way when they don't have Waddle on the field?
No. They play us differently.
Completely differently.
Yeah. 110%.
And that was more of an issue for them to adjust. And then you don't have Raheem, who's been your safety blanket all season. And yeah, you got things going with Devon, but he's a different back. And your offense is at its best when Raheem, Devon, Waddle, and Tyreek are on the field. That is your offense. That's when you were humming. And you didn't have that. And, but everything comes back to the quarterback, and it's on Tua. And against the Bills, he 153 left, and he throws 2 great passes. One that draws pass interference, another that gets Tua gets Tyreek knocked out the game. And then a third pass turns out to be an interception on a circular route that Chase Claypool runs. It is what it is, man. I think more than Tua let the team down, I think the team let Tua down. I do.
Well, I think that's been a story. People don't want to talk about that, but that's been a story going back to the first season. Remember when we were winning get in against Buffalo?
Yeah.
And Tua had I think Big E, Big E on Twitter, he did a video back then, and we had 13 drops. If you would have done the math, Tua would have had over 500 yards that game. He had 3 picks, but only one of them was on him. The other 2 were on, one hit hands and popped up, and the other one went through hands and got picked off. I think that's been, Atlanta. Right? If we would have won that Atlanta game after we lost to Jacksonville, remember where he threw the 2 picks, but then he had that amazing 4th quarter. We would have won that. We would have got in, but the defense and Flores let him down. I mean, listen, there's been plenty of times where Tua hasn't delivered in big moments, but there's been plenty of times where Tua has delivered and someone else has let him down. I mean, we can all sit here and talk about the Tyreek drops if we really want to get into someone who's let us down. Because, the first time we played KC, Omar, we should have beat them. We should have beat them. So
I'm never going to say Tyreek is listen. He might have had drops and he might have not been able to pull in touchdowns.
That first KC game, he let us down. There's no way you can say he didn't. He cost us. I mean, he had the drop at the 30. We ended up with no points, so that cost us 3-7. Then he had the fumble at the 31, which cost us 3-7 on our board and swung 7 the other way. That's a 13 to 21 point swing the other way. Listen, I agree, and I tell people Tua didn't do enough on that final drive, 110%. But when you add in what Tyreek did and the Waddle, people forget about the catch Waddle made up to 26 that got called back because of the penalty. We got no points. We should have been blowing them out in the second half all you got to do is execute. Because here's the problem. What you noticed was McDaniel, you'd get frustrated with his play call, but then he'd make the right play call, and either Tua would execute, someone else wouldn't execute, or Tua wouldn't execute. Or then you'd have McDaniel not execute with his play call. It was never one unit cohesion by the end of the season. And my question to you, Omar, is with or without Tua, the last 2 years, this offense has fluttered into the winter months. This is now a kind of a trend we're getting here. Tua missed some time and was here last year. It fluttered with and without him. And then it's happened again this year. What do you make of that?
It also fluttered and when they had injuries and had key injuries and had players playing banged up and not at full strength. I even looked at the game plans. There were different game plans. It wasn't like you were just sticking to what you know. Against the Bills, I think it was the Bills. Against the Bills, they're running more RPO, more I formation, more play action. That was a tailor-made game plan. I got to throw out Kansas City just because of those conditions, that wind, that weather. You watched the Hard Knocks episode. How much was weather being talked about?
Oh, yeah.
It was, and the reality is, and we know this, and even the biggest Tua fan can't deny this, Tua can't play in those conditions and probably will never be able to play in those conditions. And
my only pushback to that is how good was he? You want to talk about a game where people let him down? Talk about Buffalo in December last year. How good was he in that game? Sherfield and Tyreek dropped a touchdown pass, and Boyer allowed a 3rd and 17 conversion before the end of the half. They scored on. Any one of those three guys do their job, we win that game. That's a game where people let Tua down, yet Tua has to eat that L. And everyone blames Tua for that, but Tua was really good in December. And, oh, my God, how's he going to play in Buffalo? There's snow, blah, 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 blah. Tua comes out and was on fire. And it goes back to what you said, Omar. Guys let him down, and we lost the game in December last year. So I get what you're saying, but let me ask you this, Omar. You see early on the screens, right? Tua isn't driving. He's touching, and the ball is fluttering on him and dying because he's not stepping through and driving. You can saw later on throwing off his back foot, balls dying on him. Balls were dying on Mahomes even, right? And so, you talked about it earlier. Later in the game, we started having success, right? They were daring us. Throw outside the numbers. We will give you that. And later in the game, what was Tua doing? Now, you can say they're in prevent all they want, but Tua was making throws outside the numbers earlier in the game. Why are we going east-west when he's touching this stuff instead of getting him to drive the football if you're going to throw the football, get velocity on it to get through the 29-mile-per-hour wind gusts? This is another reason, Omar, why I think people are questioning McDaniel's play calling. His adjustments aren't very good in game. His adjustments are not very good.
That is a absolute fair criticism, something that I've heard from people in the NFL, people who have been in the NFL, people who are coaching. They do. If there's one major criticism that you could have about Mike McDaniel, it's halftime adjustments. And, I have not dug into it enough. I don't know what's done, what's said, but it is an issue that they have to address. They have to address. And it's not just him, but it's also the defense. I'm sorry. In games where Stephon Diggs and Lamb are just gobbling you up with yardage, how about you make an adjustment, Vic?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't think they've stopped a crossing route all season. Like at some point, you kind of need to get that thing locked down, don't you? Because next season, exactly what every team is going to plan to do to your defense. If this is a Vic Fangio defense, they're going to run crossers on you.
Yeah, those guys couldn't even pass them off properly in zone. Watching Kohu and these guys trying to pass them off, you get a headache.
Yeah,
but okay, but can't you say this, Omar? We talked about the injuries earlier, and we talked about that affecting the offense and where they were. Fangio made a lot work with, he was pretty decimated by the end of the season. You could make the argument that Fangio made a lot more work with just as much less as McDaniel, no?
Yeah, you can say that. Going into the Buffalo game, they were the number 4 defense in the NFL. And then they slid all the way to 10 at the end of the season because of, the beat downs that they started to take. But they put you in position to win those games against Buffalo. And hell, you could even say 26 points against Kansas City. Yeah, that's pretty respectable.
Yeah.
The whole team's got to show up. And that's why it's a team game. Yeah. Unfortunately, Miami, the offense sputtered and shut down in the final 3 games of the season. It just did. We've seen Tua all season. The one thing I have great confidence in is Tua, 3rd and 8, 3rd and 12. Tua's converting that
Yeah.
in an ideal situation. At home, crowd noise isn't a factor. The wind isn't gusting at 122 miles per hour. I mean, at 26 miles per hour. Tua converts those if he has chemistry with his wide receivers. That just wasn't happening, and you have to understand that some of these situations. I love the whole narrative. Dolphins can't beat playoff teams. Okay, great. How many of those playoff teams did they play at home? One. No, I mean they Dallas Bills too. They played two of those playoff teams at home, and they're 1-1. But I understand it. It's logical. It's reasonable. When the stakes get when the pressure turns up, Tua doesn't deliver, and you can't argue against that. He's had 6 opportunities to either tie or win the game in the final 4 minutes. And he's 2-6 in those opportunities. And unfortunately, that's just not good enough. If you want to get paid like an elite quarterback, you got to deliver like the elite quarterbacks do.
Yeah, I got him 2-6 in big games this year, right? People can say use hindsight, whatever they want, but the Chargers game was billed as a big game. He didn't have the run game wasn't good. The defense wasn't good. He stepped up, made a lot of plays. The Dallas game, and then obviously, we can go over the losses here, but KC, Baltimore, Philly, Buffalo twice, et cetera, et cetera. Let me ask you this. Now, I know this guy's on cloud 9 since Michigan won, and probably what Dolphin fans don't want to hear is the truth. This probably didn't sting Stephen Ross as much as it would have if the Michigan would have lost as well. Let's be honest here.
That's so disrespectful. The man has 2 franchises. They're both like his children. He loves them equally. Yes.
We know what the deal is, though. Okay.
One kid brought home all A's, and one kid brought home an F.
Yeah, but the other kid that brought home all the A's, that's his favorite child. That's Harbaugh, who he's loved for. He almost Sperano's out of town because this guy decided to wine and dine him with Sperano sitting at home eating spaghetti. All right, so
wow, spaghetti, come on.
Yeah, okay, sorry, rigatoni.
New Haven pizza. I
haven't had New Haven pizza, so I can't speak on it. But
I need to have it. I hear
it's incredible.
So I know what it's like.
So. How long until Ross, gets fed up and pulls the plug and says, this is all great and fine and dandy, but am I going to make this the highest paid, core in the NFL without a playoff win? He's probably going to open his checkbook. We know how he works. But how long until he gets fed up and he says, you know what? I'm not getting a good ROI. I'm not getting a good return on investment here. I've got a good enough core. If we make a quick switch, blah, 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 blah.
No, the core is not that good. And I would argue that to anybody who says that it is. Take a look at what the core is and what it's going to become. And I'm not talking about the injured players because I don't think you can count Chubb and Jaylen Phillips and Connor Williams and Andrew Van Ginkel as the core right now because either they're free agents or they're injured and won't be able to begin the season on the active roster. So when you get to the look of the core right now is Ramsey, Tyreek, Waddle, Tua, Achane, Sealer, Holland, and Jackson. And that's okay. No, notice I didn't say Christian Wilkins because they're going to have to franchise tag him.
Or Connor or Hunt.
And there's work to be done. No Connor, no Hunt, and just understand that the challenges that you're going to face this offseason. I was one of the first to tell you about the apocalypse that was coming, and I said enjoy your season now because this is totally an all-in approach, but there's going to be a price to pay when it's over. Well, it's officially over. You're $41 million over the cap. You need to create another $19 million just to franchise tag Christian Wilkins. That doesn't mean you're going to sign him because if you think signing Christian Wilkins is going to be easy, you've clearly never met Christian Wilkins, who is a frugal stickler and is not going to take $1 less than Quentin Williams got. So you better put that in your mind if you think it's going to be easy negotiations because Christian loves the Miami Dolphins. No, Christian loves money, and Christian is a businessman. And you don't gamble on yourself to take a team-friendly deal. Keep that in mind. Then you got to get about $5 million to afford your rookie class. And so basically, when we do the math, you need to clear $65 million just to sign Christian Wilkins and your draft picks. What about the rest of your roster? That's not, I'm going to go out there.
Offensive line is more important.
Huh?
Offensive line is more important. That's how everything's going to go on offense. Because we didn't talk about it earlier, but I could tell watching Tua for 4 years, it looked by the end of it with the throwing off the back foot and everything, and we saw how we schemed it up. Not only Tua, but this coaching staff didn't trust our offensive line.
I mean, backups there on all three.
No, rightfully so. I'm not saying they're unjustified, but you need to get this solidified.
Maybe, yeah. I'm not arguing with you. I think a priority is to make sure that Kendall Lamb comes back because you need that insurance policy.
Bro, I almost had a heart palpitation. $60 million cleared to get Christian Wilkins. I want that number to sit with people. I want that number to sit with people. $65 million. All of y'all will not even see that for the rest of your life, and they got to clear that just to give this man money. That's not even his money yet.
Now, if he signs a long-term deal, it makes it becomes easier because you don't have to carry that full $19 million.
They ain't signing him to no $24 million plus a year. It's not happening.
They're gonna have to. They're gonna grin and bear it, but they're gonna have to. And they'll
probably have it out.
I don't know how they're gonna make it happen. Ken, I see you. PP's Pizza and Plantation. I'm probably gonna check it out.
Pepe's? Yeah, it's Pepe's.
Pepe's Pizza?
Yeah, Pepe's Pizza.
Okay. So that's, it's going to be a challenging offseason. Understand, I've covered the Dolphins for 15 years. I love the business end of this sport. I've followed it. My peers call me for guidance and assistance in terms of understanding what's going on from the business end of the sport. I've never seen the Dolphins in a worse business position than where they are. You are going to have to clear $65 million, and everybody thinks it's going to be easy. Oh, we'll just cut Ogba. We'll just cut Xavier. We'll just cut Jerome. Maybe we'll cut the kicker too. Maybe Mike White. You realize how many holes that you're creating that you have to fill with basically veteran minimum players.
Or draft picks or UDFA.
Or draft picks. And you've done really well with draft picks in recent years. They're just stunning. And it would be great if you had a Channing Tindall or a Cam Smith who are ready to step up and take over for Jerome Baker and take over for Xavier Howard. But do you? You don't, because your draft picks just haven't been that great. And you could say, oh, it's going to be easy to do, but that's just a Band-Aid getting you to 2024. And then because you're going to be restructuring Tyreek and Jaylen and maybe Chubb and and Sealer and Durham and because you're going to be restructuring guys, giving them roster bonuses instead of their base salary just to buy yourself some time. That's going to make your situation even worse next year. And that's when you're probably not going to be able to play Tua. You're going to have to franchise tag Tua or give him a multi-year deal. So they are in a completely all-in position and are going to produce a worse roster than they did in 2023. And they're going to pretend like it's all good. And unless you go out there, which I think is a possibility, and you go out there and you use your first-round pick and you land a Patrick Surtain Jr., or you go out there in free agency and you create enough space where you land a Derrick Henry or the back from the Raiders, Josh Jacobs. You are going to return a worse product than you had this season, and you couldn't even win a playoff game this season. So it's going to be interesting. I hate to be the bearer of bad news.
It's the reality, man. It's the reality of the deal.
It's the reality of how you were living. You lived off credit card for 2 years, and okay, credit card bills due, man. You got to pay the bill. You got to pay the bill sometime. And so you might get a new credit card and then just use that to pay it down, but then you got 3 credit cards you need to pay off.
So would you say that this season, based off what you just said, was a complete disappointment?
It ended in a disappointment, but I think all the records that they set, all the progress that they made, the fact that they showed you we're the best show on surf. That's got to be encouraging. Now people
But
say,
what do you?
well,
Yeah, I was gonna say, what do you say to people who call those and Tua's numbers, quote unquote, the new term, new buzzword is hollow stats?
oh, hollow stats.
That's the new buzzword. Is those are hollow numbers, and so are Tua's numbers. They're hollow numbers. That's the new buzzword.
It turned up hollow because at the end you came up against 3 Super Bowl contenders and they all smacked you, and you weren't at full strength. You didn't have all your weaponry. You didn't have any of your pass rushers. Your secondary, good God, that secondary without Xavier Howard, that is trash. And you really just got injured at the least opportune time, and you did enough to weather the storm all season, but it's only so much one team can take, and they just ran into some killers and they got assassinated.
Before we get off Wilkins, I just wanted to ask one thing to you. Isn't this team looking at Steelers' production relative to what they paid him, and doesn't that hurt Wilkins is at the table? Like, don't they?
You could feel like it hurt. Whatever you want to feel. Christian Wilkins is not going to play for $8 million a year. Yeah. Like Sealer and Sealer, man. Props to him, because remember, the week he signed that contract is the week that he suffered a knee injury in practice. Remember that?
Yeah.
And everybody, and I was panicking. I was like, what the hell are you doing? Shut it down. You can't risk an injury. And I promise you, he's not going to be shedding a tear because he's going to be making $8 million a year for the next couple of seasons. However, if he had not signed that, he'd probably be making 15.
Yeah.
And it is what it is. I'm sure he's happy. I'm sure he has no regrets. But that's the same thing with Austin Jackson. Austin Jackson was playing the second half of the season with a torn abdominal muscle over here.
The oblique or whatever?
Yeah, oblique. It just got worse. And eventually got to the point where he's like, I need to just take a deal before my season shut down.
That's why he looked like Austin Jackson at the end of the season.
I didn't look like Austin Jackson.
He looked like Austin Jackson at the end of the season.
He did.
But the injury would explain it. You would notice.
You got to show me the plays. I know.
Okay, we can go to the last game, and I can show you some plays too. Don't worry, they're there.
Okay.
They're there, and we don't even have to go into run blocking. We can just stay in pass pro, and they're there. Don't worry. I'm not crucifying it for him, because you're telling me like he had a tear in his oblique. So I'm just saying that explains why he looked like he had his play had dipped from before he got paid to after. It was just I'm just saying. I'm just talking. Okay, let's talk about this, because you talked about saving money. He's gonna save about $10 million to his extension.
Mm-hmm.
How do you see this going? Because where I sit with this is, listen, I don't think he should reset the market, but I think he's earned an extension. He's gotten better every year.
He's earned an extension, but at what point and what price?
Okay, here you go. I have one of my shows, Dolphins After Dark, and one of the panelists made a 110% good point. Because you're about this. It's always about the guaranteed money. It's not about that other number, okay? Yeah. Would you be fine with 5 years, maybe an out after 3, but throw the out whatever, put the out in there wherever you want, but coming under a little less than the 185 guaranteed to Lamar Jackson?
Oh, he's going to be way under Lamar Jackson's 185 guaranteed.
Well, Omar, the reason why I'm sitting here and saying this is, listen, we can talk about trades all we want. Justin Herbert's a known choker. He got $1 million less. He got $218 million guaranteed. $1 million less than Burrow, who went to 2 AFC championships and a Super Bowl and was clearly the cream of the crop of that class before he got hurt.
But he set the market for him. Understand, the guy that sets the market for the next guy is the important guy. And here's a couple of deals that will be very interesting regarding Tua.
Okay.
Kirk Cousins deal. He's back again as an unrestricted free agent. There are teams like Pittsburgh, Carolina, maybe even Falcons, who look at him as somebody who can help the franchise. Mm-hmm. Russell Wilson. Not that I think he's a good deal, but he can go out there and get a starting job somewhere. Yeah. You got Baker Mayfield. gambled on himself, won. The question is Tua, I don't think he's in the Geno Smith, Derek Carr, $35 million a year realm, but I also don't think he's in the Lamar Jackson, $50 million a year realm. And there has to be some happy medium. Now, I think you should offer him a multi-year deal. I'm offering him a 5-year deal. Only 3 of it is guaranteed.
Yeah.
At whatever price point that you want. So ultimately, if you say he's Daniel Jones-esque, which clearly he's not signing anything for Daniel Jones money, you're talking about $120 million guaranteed. If you're Tua, are you telling me you're a small, fragile quarterback and you're going to turn down $120 million guaranteed? If you do, I mean, that's life-changing money. Now, understand Tua has made, once he gets his 5th-year option and plays through that, he'll have made, I believe, $50 or $55 million, between $50 and $55 million his entire career, not including his off-the-field stuff. Okay? Tua is not all about money. And he's not like Christian Wilkins, where what his peers think matters. Because Christian Wilkins, I promise you, he ain't signing a deal for less than what his peers are getting. It ain't happening, which is why you didn't get a deal done. I think the Dolphins make him a respectable offer, 75 cents on the dollar, for what he thinks he's worth. And you take it or you don't. And if you take it, you take the risk of playing on your 5th-year option. And I made you an offer. The Kyler Murray deal, it's a fair deal to me. I look at it, I think it's at $43 million a year. It's a fair deal. Comparable quarterback without the athleticism. I think you make that offer. And if Tua likes it, okay, accept it. If he doesn't like it, play on your 5th-year option. Now, would signing him to a multi-year deal help you from a cap standpoint? Yes, it would. But would signing Christian to, I think the priority is signing Christian to a multi-year deal before I sign Tua, because I know exactly who Christian is, and I know he's a commodity. Tua, we know he's a commodity, and we definitely know he sells tickets, but we don't know exactly who he is. And if he's not an elite quarterback, he shouldn't be making $50 million.
So what does your gut tell you? Do you think they get something done this offseason?
Yeah, because history says they're going to take care of their guy, and at no point has Tua ever done anything that makes
He's been a good soldier.
Organization doubt him.
Yeah.
I think these losses and how the season ended and the way people criticize his play and the inability to throw the ball in the cold weather, I think it's going to motivate him. I think it's going to drive him and make him be better. But
I agree.
How much better can he become? Can he be better than Lamar Jackson? Can he be better than Patrick Mahomes? Can he be better than Josh Allen? Because do remember, those are the 3 teams and 3 quarterbacks that embarrassed you.
Well, beat Josh Allen last year. You can beat him again.
Josh Allen beat himself. I hate when people give him credit for that.
Josh Allen beats himself every time he loses. That's pretty much
that is true. That is true. and he beat Lamar last year too.
Yeah. Listen, I think he's earned the extension because, listen, I'm not going to talk about levels because there's several levels to this, obviously. But
where do you put him in a quarterback hierarchy?
Where do I put him in the quarterback? He's top 10.
Back end of the top 10?
I'd take him over Herbert.
I would too, but we're in the minority. Probably.
I would probably put him at about 6 right now. 6, 7 is probably where he falls for me right now. I would put Lamar after the year he had. Yeah, I can't deny it. I'd put Lamar ahead of him. I put Josh is still ahead of him. I put Mahomes is still ahead of him. I expect when Burrow comes back, Burrow's probably going to be back to the guy of that class. Mm-hmm. And then that's where it gets muddy. Yes, that's where it gets muddy trying to pick someone better than him. So that's why I think he probably falls in that, 6 to 7 range. I don't think, I'll tell you this much. I don't think there's guys that can anticipate.
Yeah.
I think he's probably got the best anticipation in the NFL right now. I think he can fit. He can hit throws in honey holes. Guys with big arms won't even try. and it's just because his anticipation is so elite. I think his pre-snap processing is high level.
Yeah.
I just think he's. I
Yeah,
think
no, but this is
they
a
tried to tell us the pocket quarterback was dead when Lamar won his first MVP, and Tua and Brock Purdy have said, "Hey, hold my beer, watch this. Pocket quarterback is not dead; it's alive and well."
Yeah, it is really a situation where I'm curious to see what's going to happen with Tua moving forward, but he's not that high on my priority list in terms of things that need to get done. Or Tua's going to be here. He's going to be your quarterback. I'm very curious how other players get handled, how the Christian Wilkins gets handled, how they handle Xavier's situation, how they handle Jerome Baker's situation. Do they shake him down or do they restructure him? I'm very curious how a lot of things get handled. Tua, while it's a great talking point for everybody and everybody wants to talk quarterback and can only talk quarterback because that's the only position anybody can talk with authority about the NFL, Tua is probably number 10 on my pecking order of things that need to be addressed.
Taken care of, yeah. Sean Patterson says, could Tua develop to Goff? I'll say this. Tua in year 4 is far more advanced than where Goff was in year 4, and that's not even a discussion, but
yeah,
whatever.
I mean, that's fair. But Goff might have been in the Super Bowl in year 4, though. So.
I mean, with you go with Todd Gurley on that last run there, I mean, that could have carried us to this. That could have carried Mike White to the Super Bowl. Never mind Jared Goff. But then what happened? Hey, Belichick, what steals Fangio's game plan and shut that down, and it didn't matter. And what happened when they took away the run game and it was in Goff's hands? And that's why he got shipped out, right? So, I wanted to ask you something about Adam Beasley said something interesting in his article yesterday. He said that Waddle was unhappy with his role and wants a new deal this offseason. Have you heard anything to that effect about not even so much the unhappiness, but him wanting a new deal this offseason?
I actually talked to Waddle. That's a good conversation before he got hurt. And he opened up to me about, being unhappy and disappointed in this season, even though he was 1,000-yard receiver. Waddle doesn't necessarily want to play, Robin to Tyreek Batman. And I don't think they do. I think they feed off one another. But I will say this. He's a team player. He loves Tua. Clearly, he's on his 5th-year option, so everybody on their 5th-year option is going to want. Actually, they got to trigger into his 5th-year option.
They will, though, right?
Yeah, they will. Jaylen Phillips, I don't know because of the injury, but I think it would probably be wise to trigger his 5th-year option as well because we know what Jaylen Phillips is and we know how hard he works.
Yeah.
But in terms of I'm sorry. I think the top priority for guys who need a new deal is Javon Holland. And even then, I'm a little bit queasy about that. But
yeah,
Javon Holland is making $1.8 million next year. And he doesn't have any playing time escalators to bump up that salary because he's a 2nd-round pick. So stay in your lane, Jaylen. And there's going to be a lot of priorities. And that's the same thing I said when we were coming into last offseason. Everybody's going to be jockeying for the same money. And they know that everybody can't get it. When Austin Jackson got his new deal, that sent ripple effects to everybody else on the team. So, but this is a team that absolutely loves one another, supports one another. And I think they'll continue to do that because of the people who set the tone for the organization. And that's Tua and Tyreek and Armstead and Mostert and Holland and Wilkins. And those guys are team first, and then they're about their money.
So with Waddle there for a second, it seemed in year 1 under McDaniel they were much more 1A 1B. This year, do you think it was the 2K campaign that kind of took that away?
If you put a gun to my head, I'd probably say yes. But
does that go away, Omar? Tell me that goes away next year and 2K is not another goal. Please tell me that doesn't. You know what I didn't like, Omar? I'm hearing Tyreek talk to you guys in the locker room. about how his family's talking to him about 2K at the dinner table. Y'all need to be talking about winning a Super Bowl, winning a playoff game, not individual accolades at the It felt like, I'm not going to put that on Tyreek. It felt like people around Tyreek were putting the pressure of the 2K on him.
Tyreek's putting pressure on himself. That's something that nobody else in the league has done. And yeah, people could view it as detrimental to the team. But you know what? Let me ask you a question. Did you have the number one offense in the NFL or not?
Yeah,
did you have an offense that was on pace to set records before everybody get injured or not?
Yeah,
you did. So who's losing here? Like, if Tyreek is the tone setter and Tyreek's setting a hell of a tone, Tyreek's out there playing on, he had the same injury that Mostert and Waddle had. The same. And how many weeks did he miss? 1.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. Was he out there killing it? No,
freak.
He was not. But he was still out there making plays, right?
Yeah. No, yeah.
There were points when we'd watch practice and I'd be like, damn, how is he playing like that? And I caught some stones last week when I said watch Waddle practice in the one practice, and I was like, and it was literally the worst practice I've ever seen anybody have in my life, based on what I saw. And I was like, there's no way that he could play. And everybody stoned me to death. And they're like, he has to play. And yeah, they probably shot him up and put him out there. But do you really think that he was himself? Do you think that they defended him like they feared?
No, did you see the one throw towards the sideline? He heard the foot's coming, and he's like, I don't want no part of that. You remember that throw towards the sideline? He heard the feet coming, and it was a flat-out drop. Tua hit him right in the chest, and it was almost like, oh, I heard the feet. I don't want that. I'm good. Yeah,
it's everybody's got to be accountable for what happened, what got put on that field. And
yeah.
And it's not just Tua, folks. It wasn't just Tua. It was the line. It was the backs. It was the receivers. It was the play callers. It was a shit show. It really was.
Listen, then I want to do it publicly here so everyone hears it. I know I said it to you privately, but I want to give this man a round of applause for having Brian Baldinger up and absolutely destroying the One Read narrative. I want to thank this man to my left here and to y'all right, because Brian Baldinger, I almost fell out of my chair when he said people saying that, and I'm pretty much quoting and paraphrasing, people who say that don't watch football. I was like, oh,
don't watch football and don't know what the hell they're talking about.
Oh my God.
I kept hearing this One Read narrative, and I'm like, where the hell is this coming from? And why is everybody continuously keep parroting it? Like, that's the dumbest thing you could say about Tua. Literally, the man's superpower, and they call it a superpower. And veteran quarterbacks in the league's like, oh my God, his processing speed is amazing. It's his ability to read the field, diagnose what's going on, and get the ball where it needs to be. And he throws to spaces, not receivers. He throws where his receivers are supposed to be. So even that highly criticized pass to Chase Claypool, when I watched that, like,
it was the route. He threw it through to the right spot, but Chase Claypool didn't get to the spot.
The one thing you cannot say, yes, he throws an interception off his back foot in Kansas City because the pressure was in his face and he couldn't step into the throw. Those things happen.
And the design wasn't good because he had the hook right underneath. He had to layer over, right? Instead of being able to drive it, he had to layer it over. But anyways, continue.
The one thing that he can do is read the damn field and throw the ball where it needs to be. Like,
yeah,
we've watched that time and time again. Now, where he gets himself into trouble is trailing big when defense knows I got to throw and they want me to throw outside the numbers because they're clamping down the middle of the field. And they're saying, beat me outside. He's in trouble. That's always going to be when you can back him into that corner is when you got him. And don't throw in bad weather or the elements because that just makes the situation worse. And clearly Kansas City did that. Clearly the Chiefs did that. And clearly Buffalo did that.
Yeah.
And okay, you don't have a quarterback who's good at throwing outside the numbers, especially when the opposition knows, take everything away from the middle of the field, make them force them outside and take away deep. And then you don't have anybody with speed to go deep which teams started defending Miami differently in the final month of the season. And I know people who actually don't watch film don't know that because they don't really watch and pay attention. But teams with no Waddle, I ain't scared of y'all. No Waddle, please. Like, I'm here. I'm in the box.
Yeah.
Like, all I got to do is worry about Tyreek. There's a guy over the top of Tyreek, and nobody else is going to beat me. Tell me who else is going to beat me. Nobody.
Yeah.
No Raheem too? Oh, man. Like, come on. That Raheem, he's going to make one guy miss, and he's going to go to the house. That's who Raheem is. You don't have that, and you don't have Waddle? Please. We're defending you completely different. And that's what happened in the final month of the season. Nobody wants to – everybody looks at it as an excuse, but all I say is watch the film.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, like, one thing I find with Tua, like, this is my thing. It seems like when we get down he gets this need of, I've got all these weapons around me. I have to make the play right here, right now. It has to be an explosive. When I always go back, like, look at the first time we faced New England this year, right? That was the first time we saw that 3-high safety shell, right?
Yes.
First time. But Omar, did you notice, because you watch a film, did you notice that was the best game we played against that 3-high safety shell, because we were taking the underneath. And then later on in the season, teams would throw that out. What happens? We'd be forcing it downfield, forcing the shot.
I don't remember teams using it much.
Yeah, we had about, I want to say 2 or 3 other teams used it throughout the season. I saw it about 2 or 3 other times, and we weren't as effective and we heard them talking about it after games near the end of the season. And this is one thing that bugs me with Tua, is it feels like he gets the need of, I got to make the play right now. And Tua is at his best when he's in rhythm and he dictates the game flow as it comes to him organically and not forcing the situation. When he forces a situation, that's when he starts that's when he starts making mistakes in his issues. And I know all quarterbacks can become susceptible to that. The problem is Tua becomes susceptible to that more often than not, because you see the games where, for example, the Chargers game, look at how calm, cool, collected, and poised he was, even when he stepped up in that pocket and made that throw down the right sideline to Tyreek, where Tyreek lost his helmet. That guy only showed up twice. I think in the Dallas game on that final drive, we looked like we could have scored. We settled for a field goal. We probably could have scored on them. But the other 6 losses that we talked about earlier, right? And what's ironic too, Omar, think about it. Chiefs and Bills play this week. Those guys are responsible for 4 of our 7 losses. 2 teams are responsible for 4 of our 7 losses. But anyways, it's just, and what's frustrating, Omar, and I know you've seen it, Tua has shown he's capable of those game-winning drives. Tua has shown he's capable of saying, okay, hop on my back. I'll win us the game. That's the problem, though. He doesn't do it enough. He does it 30 to 40% of the time when we need you over 50%, bud.
I don't even know if it's 40. It's not enough.
Well, 2 for 6 this year. It's about 30%. That's I'm just going off that, right?
Yeah, and then we go to last year.
25%, sorry.
Huh?
2 for 6 this year, right? 2 out of 8. He's 25% this year, basically, right?
That's about right. If it was 40%, I'd be like, yeah, he's borderline elite. It's not 40%. So yeah. Hey, he's got to figure out a way. When you want to get paid like an elite quarterback, you got to elevate a team like an elite quarterback. You saw how Josh elevated his team. You saw how Lamar Jackson elevated his team. You saw how Patrick Mahomes elevated his team.
Yeah,
that's what you got to do.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're just Dak Prescott.
Oh boy. Don't even say McDaniel McCarthy, or I'm gonna fall out of my chair right now. Any final thoughts, brother, before we get out of here? Anything you want to add, or
yeah. Again, the apocalypse is here. It's gonna be a tough off season. This is going to be a belt tightening off season. And so they're going to make some tough decisions. And I'm curious to see how this plays out. Who gets shaken down, who gets new money, extensions. It's going to be rough. You're not going to have that spending spree that you're so used to as Dolphin fans, but maybe they get you a big whale. So I'm based on what Chris Greer's answer was regarding whether or not he's going to have that 21st draft pick. Sounds like he's still going to be Big Will hunting. So maybe they go trade for somebody and add another starter to this team. We shall see. We got time.
Guys, do me the favor, smash the like button, subscribe if you're new. For all the Patrons and channel members, I had a big update, a 3 takes update for you guys yesterday, talking about Wilkins, Connor Williams, Jaylen Waddle. Had a huge update for you guys. Go to the Patreon or become a channel member under the community tab. It's there for you guys. Go check it out. It came out of nowhere for you guys, so hope you enjoy it. Enjoyable time as always, Omar. Pleasure having you on. And hey, let's do it again. All right.
All right.
Always appreciative of you coming.
I'll be here. We'll be on these alldolphins.com streets. So
yeah, plug it. Everyone go subscribe. All Dolphins. You guys got to be coming up on 15K soon, right?
No, we're at like 12 something. We're past 12.
Help them hit the Marino number, guys. Go over there, smash the like button on everything they got, and go show support. All right, because the good content creators, they need your support right now.
Yeah, man, it's been lean. These losses lean you out.
Well, welcome to the offseason. You're about to get the real lean, buddy.
Oh yeah, that's I'm gonna be eating some ramen noodles just like the Miami Dolphins. Yeah.
All right, guys, smash the like button, subscribe if you're new. Appreciate y'all. We'll talk to y'all on the next one.